Hello everybody, you're welcome back again to the Reggae Appreciation Society. Just like Detroit is famous as the original hub of soul music and Nashville is considered the home of country music, Trenchtown is considered the cradle, birthplace and home of roots reggae music. It's amazing the humongous cultural impact that the community of just 400 acres has had on the world. It has produced the biggest names in the reggae genre, with the most famous of course, the Wailers, Toots and the Maytals, the Mighty Diamonds, and the subject of this video in the incredible Wailing Souls. Though this incredible group may not have enjoyed the same level of international fame as their peers, their quality, brilliance and talent has never been in doubt among reggae fans and music critics alike. They came from the same musical DNA that produced reggae's greatest stars, and to many fans, they more than any other embody the true essence of what it means to wail in a musical sense, about the true experiences of day-to-day living in one of the harshest environments that was Trenchtown. Since the group's formation 57 years ago, it has weathered countless storms and lineup changes, but is still forging ahead and is today arguably the longest running reggae band on the planet. They are the embodiment of roots reggae today and the last of the original Trenchtown greats. Let's take a look at the amazing story of the Wailing Souls. The story of this group begins with legendary Jamaican pioneer musician and music teacher Joe Higgs. Higgs had started out as a songwriter and high school music teacher before experiencing success as one half of the duo of Higgs and Wilson by 1960. Higgs lived in Trenchtown, and his biggest passion was imparting his musical knowledge to the youth in his neighborhood. He would organize musical lessons in his backyard, and those informal classes attracted hordes of young future stars like the Wailers in those days. Among the many youth that would learn at Higgs' feet were two childhood friends in Winston Matthews and Lloyd McDonald. Both lads quickly soaked up Higgs' knowledge, and by the time they were entering high school, had developed great singing voices that began to attract attention in their neighborhood by the early 1960s. Every day after school, Winston and Lloyd would play football in the day and end the evening converging with others at abandoned buildings where wannabe singers and even established acts would come to smoke their spliffs and sing to the crowds that normally gathered to listen. It was in that period that Winston Matthews earned the nickname Pipe. His singing was so powerful that he attracted passers-by like a sort of Pied Piper. The two lads' confidence continued to grow as people began to mistake them for established musicians. Pipe first formed a group called the Schoolboys with some classmates, and in 1966 formed a vocal trio called the Renegades with his pal Lloyd McDonald and their friend George Buddy Hay, who had also been a student of Joe Higgs. Their quality was quickly noticed, and they were soon in high demand to work as backup vocalists for the likes of Ernest Ranglin and British singer Pamela Blythe, all while they were still in high school. In 1968, George Buddy Hay left the trio, and in his place came Oswald Downer and Norman Davis. They changed the name of the group to the Wailing Souls and stepped into the next level of their career. The name Wailing Souls was chosen to symbolize their wailing and lamentation for freedom from poverty and the oppression that they saw all around them. They were soon discovered by Coxsone Dodd and began to release singles under Studio One, unleashing amazing tracks like Back Out With, Roll Fisherman Roll, and Mr. Fire Coal Man, all becoming big hits in Jamaica. When you listen to those songs, it's very easy to mistake their music for that of the Wailers, who had left Studio One a few years before then, and even more so as Pipe's voice sounded a lot like Bob Marley's. A small part of me wonders if Coxsone Dodd intentionally tried to pass them off as a replacement of the Wailers, but that's just my own speculation. After leaving Studio One in 1970, they began to record for producer Lloyd Daly and released several songs under different aliases, including Atara, The Classics, and Pipe and the Pipers, to avoid being mistaken for the Wailers. But incidentally, they would get signed by the Wailers' new label, Tough Gong, and release some beautiful songs like Harbor Shark and Walk Walk Walk. The Wailing Souls were emerging as a sonic delight, with the piercing vocals of Pipe and the exquisite harmonies of the trio behind him, spouting deep, thought-provoking lyrics, an irresistible combination that saw them soaring into major success. In 1974, the group would experience another major lineup change, with Oswald Downer and Norman Davis leaving the band 6 years after joining. It was a very dicey time for the group's future, but help came in the amazing form of their former teacher and mentor Joe Higgs, as well as original Renegade member George Buddy Hay. However, Higgs' time with the group was very short-lived, as prior commitments forced him to leave for a lengthy tour of the US with Jimmy Cliff. But he was replaced by another Trenchtown boy who also had been a student of Joe Higgs, in Garth Dennis. Dennis had just left Black Uhuru's initial lineup, and with the group now stable, the Wailing Souls started on a fantastic and powerfully successful run. The Wailing Souls embarked on an amazing collaboration with producer Jojo Hukim and his Channel 1 studios, and together they unleashed a devastating string of hits, ably backed by the studio's legendary in-house band, The Revolutionaries, that featured Sly Dunbar and Robbie Shakespeare. Some of these massive hits included Things and Time, Jaja Give Us Life, and Backbiter. It was during this period that they began to garner some serious international recognition, especially in the UK, when their music was noticed and picked up by the punk and skinhead movements. Interestingly, the group was already hugely successful, but didn't yet have an album out, except for a compilation which had been released by Studio One long after they left. But after unleashing two massive singles, in Breda Gravelicious and Feel the Spirit, Island Records signed them up and they released their debut album Wild Suspense in 1979. After issuing some singles with Sly and Robbie's Taxi label, they returned to Channel 1 Studios to work with dancehall producer Henry Jonjo Laws, who was red hot at the time and was cranking out the cutting-edge sound in Jamaica. That partnership yielded what is arguably their greatest body of work in the 1981 classic album Firehouse Rock, which was also backed by the legendary band The Roots Radics. This album was what really established them as international superstars and earned them an especially massive fan base in the US. In the same year Firehouse Rock came out, the Wailing Souls embarked on a tour of California, which turned out to be extremely successful and helped spark a reggae craze in Cali that is still burning bright today. That tour inspired the likes of legendary California reggae DJ Gregory G and a host of reggae bands still going strong today. The Wailing Souls California tour blew up into a massive US tour that lasted for more than 4 years. But while it brought monumental success to the group, it also produced a new setback. When it was time for the band to return fully to Jamaica, George Hay and Garth Dennis didn't want to go back home and stayed behind in Los Angeles, with Garth Dennis eventually rejoining Black Uhuru. Pipe and Bread were back down to 2 again, but would recruit singer Ziggy Thomas in 1986 and continued on to phase 3 of the Wailing Souls story. Their return to Jamaica wasn't as rosy as it was before they left, and after releasing 3 albums, they returned to the US in 1991. The next album, titled All Over the World, proved to be something of a comeback, as it was a strong commercial success and also got the group their first Grammy nomination. And to cap off a wonderful season, 4 songs from the album were included in the soundtrack of the 1993 movie Cool Runnings. However, they were criticized heavily by many roots reggae fans for their crossover sounding songs for the rest of the 1990s. But after collaborating with Sly and Robbie for their year 2000 album Equality, they pacified their critics with a return to their traditional roots sound. Today, the Wailing Souls is still moving on with the original core of Winston Pipe Matthews and Lloyd Bread McDonald, still headlining concerts, touring, and releasing new music every now and then. They are among the longest running music acts on the planet, and they consistently credited their friendship from childhood as the source of their strength and longevity. They are not only roots reggae legends, but are a living embodiment of the brilliance of the golden age of reggae and stand tall as the last of the original Trenchtown greats. So there you have it. Thank you for watching the video today. Please leave a like, subscribe, and until next time, God bless.